there are instances of like towns and villages in England having stocks of different livery badges. So whichever army was riding through, they'd stick, oh, Beaufort, oh, Percy. And then as soon as they were gone, it's like, change them.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the 6-part special of the Wars of the Roses, as today we deal with the fall of Edward, Duke of York. Joining me are two historians, Derek Birks, the author of the Guide to the Wars of the Roses, and David Pilling, author of KingBreaker. The series continues and you'll get 2 episodes per week, so hopefully we'll emerge from August with a superior knowledge of the conflict that was an early civil war and which formed England for the next few hundred years. All the great characters are here: Elizabeth Woodville, Queen Margaret, Warwick the Kingmaker, Edward IV, Richard III, and finally Henry Tudor. Please do share and like and subscribe, but in the meantime, it's the Wars of the Roses Part 2, The Death of York. Now, last time we spoke, Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, was you mentioned that he's a little bit overrated, but so far he seems to have won quite a great victory at Northampton.
Yeah, well, but that's why I was I mean, both of us have said it was due to treachery, and
Yes.
I think 1461 is a good year to judge Warwick.
Okay. Well, before we get to 1461,
the thing about Warwick is energy. Warwick brings enormous energy to anything he does. And in this case, he is definitely a driving force behind that push north from London, taking him Northampton. There's no question about that. And this is a man who's talented, who has many skills, and is not short of confidence. So yes, this might be his high point, actually, to some extent.
Interesting. Okay, but why did Richard of York not join with Warwick at this stage?
Well, we're pretty unsure what was going on. Warwick had been to Ireland, and they'd had this big planning week or two. God knows what they were planning, because it doesn't seem to have made any sense when they actually started carrying things out. Because while Warwick was doing what we've just said in England, York was still in Ireland. York stays in Ireland until September, and this is months later. So I don't think anybody's told. David might have an insight. I've no idea what York is doing, whether he's just mulling things over about whether he goes for the throne or whether he's already decided that. I've no idea. I don't think anybody has, but I'm happy if David has.
Yeah, as far as I know, perhaps they just didn't coordinate things very well. I think he's still in Ireland, and then they meet up, Warwick and York, in London after Northampton, I think. And it's at this point anyway that York really starts pushing this notion that he should be King of England. And then you have these very awkward conversations, because he throws this problem at Warwick as like, you're my fixer, I want to be King of England, arrange this. And then Warwick holds his council with these lords, and everyone goes, we can't do that, Henry is the king. So they throw the problem at some lawyers and say, look, come on, come up with something. And the lawyers pass it back to them and say, well, you can't get around feudal.
It's kind of unprecedented, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
Edward II turns up, but
York turns up in September in Chester. He lands at Chester, or roughly in that area, and symbolically he is claiming the throne before he's got anywhere near London, because he's wearing the royal coat of arms and the sword of state is being carried upright in front of him, which is a symbol of monarchy.
Yes.
So he progresses slowly through the country and gets to London. And then when he comes into London, again, it is in the same manner. So York is making a statement that he has a claim to the throne and he expects something to be done about it. And then, of course, as David said, when he gets to London, he finds that he's in a sort of minority of one, in terms of
Yeah.
who thinks this is a good idea.
Well, there are some wonderful anecdotes about these little mini dramas that happen in London. At one point, York puts his hand on the throne as his sort of, quite overt way of saying, I claim the throne. And he expects all the men behind him to cheer and go, God bless King Richard. And instead, they all sort of look at him and go, what are you doing?
Yeah,
And he's standing there looking like a bit of a fool at this point.
yeah,
And then he seems to go into this colossal sulk because
yeah.
nobody will agree with him. And he storms around the palace. And then at one point, he breaks into Henry's chamber and he physically turfs Henry out. He kicks him out the room and says, get lost, and sits on his chair. But it's like, yeah, you can manhandle the king, but he's still the king. What are you going
Yeah,
to do?
yeah.
And then they come up with this bodged arrangement whereby Henry will be allowed to remain king for the rest of his life, but his son, Prince Edward, will be disinherited and York will become king, which sounds good, except York is 10 years older than Henry. He's almost 50. And given the life expectancies of the time, that could possibly never happen. And that makes him even angrier. So he starts riding around Westminster Palace saying, and sort of kicking the servants and going, I should be king. And he just looks like a massive spoiled child, which I think a lot of these aristocrats probably were.
Yeah, I mean, I think Warwick is embarrassed. I think Warwick, and this is what one time really when Warwick has done things pretty well. He has kind of broken a coalition to around Henry VI now. He's said how loyal he is to him, despite having killed some more of his counselors.
Yeah.
But there is stability there at the moment. He's not by any means won, but he's done quite a good job. And then along comes Richard and says, right, guys, I'm going to be king. And it just shatters all of that completely. And as David says, they come up with a cobbled agreement called the Act of Accord, which really should have been called the Act of Discord. Because nobody wants it. No, everybody hates it. And it just gives Margaret a reason to make sure that hostilities continue.
And where is Margaret? She's with Edward the whole time. Edward, her son.
She's up in the north, I think.
In the north, yeah. And she's still got an army at her back, and she's raising a bigger one. And she's got Jasper Tudor in Wales, who is raising troops, and she's got people in the southwest that she can call on. So if you were to look at a map of England in 1460 or the middle of 1460, the Lancastrians have got the north, the west, the southwest, and half the Midlands, and the Yorkists have got the rest. It's very, very much on a knife edge in terms of power. And then the hostilities start again. She's raising an army, so the Duke of York thinks, right, well, let's deal with that. So he and Salisbury go north to try and confront Margaret. Warwick stays to hold London, and Edward Earl of March is dispatched to the West Country, to Ludlow to raise an army to counter Jasper Tudor in Wales. So, everything's happening. It's all sort of kicking off again. And that's where we are at the end of 1460. York is in the north, Margaret's in the north. Now that should suggest to you that there might be a bit of a problem in the north.
Well, when you say problem, you mean a battle?
Yeah, sort of, yes.
York, he's a bit like a bull at a gate at this time. He races north. His army's too small, really, and he's advised. He manages to get to Sandal Castle near Wakefield, which is one of his castles, and he's advised to sit tight there and just wait for Edward to come up with reinforcements. But instead, he allows himself to be lured out of the castle, and then you get this Battle of Wakefield, which is really another one of these battles of the period where when you look at what actually happens, it just makes me think of like The Sopranos, the sort of gangland massacre, where there's no chivalry or any of that nonsense. They just lure him out. I think one of the descriptions, he's like a fish in a net. And then the Lancastrians surround the Yorkists and just butcher the lot. And York himself, I think he dies fighting. And his son, Edmund.
Edmund, yes. Yeah.
Edmund of Rutland, and Salisbury, Warwick's father.
Salisbury's executed afterwards,
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
yeah.
But this is December. Who in their
Yeah, who
right
fights in
mind
December?
in the
Yeah.
north takes an army out to fight? I mean,
Mm,
nobody can actually adequately explain it. One's, as you've said, one suggestion is he was sort of lured out. Another is they were short of supplies and so on. There's
mm,
about 5 or 6 different explanations, but I think the answer lies, as you said, with the personality of York himself and his state of mind at that time. I
mm.
think he
He does.
wants
He
he
does
wants
seem in the last 6 months or so of his life to be a man who's kind of losing his grip a little bit, or losing self-control.
I'd suggest
Yeah.
it's been going on for about 30 years, but
Right. Right. Okay.
yeah.
Yes, he doesn't seem particularly able. He seems to make a number of mistakes from what we've discussed today.
Certainly, what the Battle of Wakefield is his mistake, and he pays for it, and
Yeah.
he gets all his men killed.
And his lack
Um,
of coordination from Ireland and all, and then assuming everyone's going to back him when he arrives in England as well.
yeah, I didn't know that detail that Derek supplied about him riding from Chester with the royal
Yeah.
coat of arms and having the sword katana held in front of him. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's before he's got anyone's agreement
Yeah.
that he can be king.
Yeah.
It's
That's
like
right.
that's really quite stupid.
I mean, at the
You
time,
know.
it's a very symbolic thing that everybody understands
Mm,
what that means. So it's amazing, really. But I think it's a measure of York's total belief from beginning to end that he should be king. At the
mm,
beginning of the period, he's saying, "Well, I should be king, but obviously I'm not. So I'll try and be the most powerful subject and be helpful." But then it sort of festers into I really should be king. Why
mm.
am I not king?
You have to wonder what sort of king he would have made with this kind of like decision making. I mean, people have been longing for the days of Henry VI. So bring him
Yes, I'm
back.
imagining York in France. I'm not sure that would have gone well. But
Riding around like a mad thing, I should imagine.
so with the destruction of York's army, that's quite a setback for Warwick. Is Warwick now the main person for the House of York, given that the Duke of York and his son have both been killed at Wakefield?
Well, his second son has been killed,
Hmm.
but the
Yes.
heir, his heir, Edward Earl of March, is still very much alive. And I would argue that in the following year, in 1461, we see the relative strengths of Edward and Warwick. Edward has nothing to. There's no reason why Edward should be successful at all. He's he's having to cobble together an army, admittedly in the heartland of York at Ludlow, but he's facing Jasper Tudor and Owen Tudor with a Welsh army coming into that area, and he's supposed to stop it. That's his job. But once he hears his father's died, that all the goalposts move all over the place because so what are they fighting for now? Edward, if Richard Duke of York's dead, what does Edward do? Does he give up and go away? Does he say, okay, well, my father's dead, so I get what he had, in other words, a claim to the throne. So but they've got possession of Henry VI. They still have the king on their side. So really anything Warwick or Edward does at that point is still legal because it's being done in the name of the king. But whether he has anything to do with it is beside the point. They can argue that. So what Edward decides to do is right, and this is of course Edward's the way he is with everything. Right, okay, so let's make a fight of it here and see then where we go from there. And he defeats Jasper Tudor in February 1461 at the Battle of Mortimer's Cross. And he does it pretty comprehensively. It's a hard battle, but as far as we know, it's a fairly comprehensive victory. And he's then waiting to hear from Warwick. Now, you asked the question a minute ago, was Warwick then the main man for York? Warwick's big disadvantage is he didn't have a claim to the throne. He didn't even have a slight claim to the throne. So he's got to be working for somebody else. And at the moment, he's claiming he's working for Henry VI. He's got Henry VI with him. The Queen has got a massive army, which she's sweeping down from the north towards London. Warwick's in London still, Queen's army coming towards him. So Warwick, being a brave soul, decides to march north and take on the Queen head on. He's going to finish it, because he's a magnificent general, but he isn't, because at the Second Battle of St Albans, Warwick's army is in a right muddle. He's got men in the town, he's got men outside the town, and one thing's for sure, Warwick doesn't know where his army is. He knows where some of them are, but not most of them. So what happens is his brother John Neville is left with the vanguard of the army, trying to defend St Albans against the might of the Lancastrian army. And basically they get pasted severely. And Warwick has to flee from St Albans and critically loses possession of Henry VI. So that's in February as well. So in February, you've got Edward winning at Mortimer's Cross in the west and Warwick losing catastrophically at St Albans in the east and running away to join Edward.
I find Second Battle at St Albans quite interesting because Warwick, as you said, he thinks he's this magnificent general and he brings all these new toys, these newfangled weapons. I think he's got some foreign mercenaries who are like handgunners. Yeah, they've got these newfangled Burgundians probably, and he's got he puts down these defenses against cavalry, these caltrops.
That's right. Yeah.
The only problem is this is all wonderful. He's got mortars and artillery. They're all facing in the wrong direction. And when the Lancastrians actually attack, they attack from behind him. They come through the town, don't they? His reconnaissance is dreadful. I mean, most of his scouts get lost, except one who comes back with the wrong information. To an extent in this period, you always have poor communications and poor logistics. But Warwick makes a real botch job of Second St Albans.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Can we just
hears
pause
of the defeat and marches east immediately to try and see what can be salvaged, and they meet up at somewhere like Chipping Norton springs to mind, somewhere in the Midlands.
Warwick and
Edward.
Hello, Ollie here. Please forgive my interruption, but I wanted to let you know that at Aspects of History, we produce a digital magazine featuring articles, interviews, short stories and book reviews of the best historical writing available. Authors featured including Ben Macintyre, Lucy Worsley, Andrew Roberts and plenty more. An annual subscription is available for only $9.99, that's pounds or dollars. Yep, you heard that right. That's 6 issues for under £10 or dollars. Head over to aspectsofhistory.com to subscribe, where you can also gift subscriptions. Now back to the show. Can we just briefly discuss Edward, because he's quite an impressive man, and I know you're a slight admirer, Derek, having written.
No, I'm not a slight admirer. I'm a heavy admirer.
Heavy admirer, huge
like
admirer of Edward, who becomes Edward of York. He's Edward of the York at the moment. Spoiler alert. He becomes Edward IV, and you wrote about him as a historical hero. So what? He's a lot more able than his father, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult to be objective about somebody who lived such a long time ago, and there are so many different versions of their lives that you're wading through after sort of 500 years. But if you think about it, he's only 18 when he fights at Mortimer's Cross. He's leading an army in very uncertain circumstances, not only militarily but politically, and he is an absolutely indomitable warrior. I mean, this is a guy who's over 6 foot tall, wields a couple of pole axes. If you're in an army, you want to be standing behind him. You want him to be forging ahead. He's that kind of sort of boy's own heroic kind of figure.
He is the exact opposite of Henry VI then.
Yes.
Yeah. I always think that the Plantagenet gene pool is quite interesting because it produces a lot of duds, and then occasionally you get this massive blonde Conan the Barbarian type who's also extremely intelligent. Yes. And that's Edward, It's like
talk about his intelligence then, because if he's clearly very good with a sword. What
Well, I
about
mean,
his sort of political machinations?
it's a funny one, really, because, if you do something dramatic and you lose, you're branded as rash. If you do something
Mm,
dramatic and win, you're regarded as bold. So it's always a bit of a narrow line on these things. And Edward basically was also lucky
yeah, that's true.
most of the
Mm,
time, and you need
mm,
that. Um, but I think he was a well balanced individual. He had his military skills, but he was terrific with people, men and women. I mean, perhaps too much with women, but essentially he was one of the lads, so he could hold his own. He was respected by the lads, respected by other members of the nobility, but equally he could hold his own at court, and he
mm.
could make relatively wise decisions on difficult matters. He balanced things quite well, I believe. Anyway, I'm sure there are
I think
examples where he didn't, but
I think I find him quite sort of frightening as well, because underneath all that charm and this sort of, this good old boy exterior, he could be very, very cold-blooded. He had plenty of people killed, and he would kill. I mean, it's a few years down the line, but he had several men executed on the field of battle just to unnerve the enemy. Um, and he had people killed who tried to take refuge in churches and monasteries, which was a big deal at the time. And I
yeah.
think so. You've got this on the surface, very sort of charismatic, able chap who can come across however he wants to, but underneath he's this cold-blooded killer, which
Yeah,
is
I'm not sure I'd agree with it. I think for the first time we might have a point of difference there. He does kill people um, when he needs to for
Hmm,
political reasons. But if you compare him with almost anybody else really in the Plantagenet era, he is incredibly even-handed to a point where he puts himself at risk. There's loads of examples. I mean, with Warwick himself later on, as we'll see,
hmm,
he's very generous to his enemies. Uh, there are several occasions where he buries the hatchet and said, right, okay, if you're loyal to me,
hmm.
that's fine. But if that person then betrays him, he's not likely to be very sympathetic. I think he also has a couple of mad dogs working for him as well. Who
Worcester,
quite
I think
Worcester in
John
particular.
Tiptoft, yes.
Yes, he's a
Um,
brutal individual.
yeah. No, well, I think that's where Edward's intelligence comes in. I mean, I don't think he's like an unreasoning psychopath. He kills people at exactly the right time when he means to. But
Sounding like Tony Soprano.
yeah, I mean, somebody like again, we're going ahead a bit. Somebody like, I think it's Lord Wells. He just has his
Yes.
head cut off, no trial, just in front between two armies because he knows it'll provoke Wells's son into doing something stupid, and it
Well,
works. It worked.
yeah, he
Um,
said to Wells's son, "If you don't back off, I'm going to execute your father."
mm,
And his son didn't back off, so he executed him.
yeah,
As you
yeah,
say,
sure.
it's to make the point that I mean what I'm talking about.
Mm,
Um, Turns out to be quite important at the time politically as
yeah.
well.
Um,
Um, as you
So
say,
back to
yes.
the story.
Back to the
I know we
story.
wanted to finish our kind of first section on the Wars of the Roses around 1469. So Edward has we've last left Edward. He is the Duke of York. He's not yet, but
Yeah.
he has captured Henry VI.
No, he hasn't.
Oh
No.
God, I got it wrong, didn't I?
No, well, Warwick's just lost Henry VI. So
Yeah, sorry.
Margaret
oh,
has
yeah,
That's
well,
got
yes,
her
right.
husband back. And you may recall I said there was this large Lancastrian army that defeated him at St Albans. Well, there's nothing between them and London then. So they get to London, and it's perfectly obvious what must happen, and that is they will take London. But they don't. And there are several reasons for that. They certainly could have taken London, but the population of London were largely pro-Yorkist. So it would be a hostile environment for the Lancastrians. Also, the city fathers had said, look, we don't mind opening the gates, but you need to give us guarantees that there won't be lots of looting and so on. And this is where I think those who regard Margaret as a kind of she wolf, I don't like repeating the word really, but she doesn't take London, she backs off, uh, partly because she cannot give those guarantees. She can't promise that her huge army won't exact some sort of penance on the population of London. And so she withdraws, and that is a huge mistake, as it turns out, because as she withdraws, on the horizon, Edward, Earl of March and Warwick just ride straight into London and are received with rapturous applause.
Okay,
And
so this
Edward,
stuff, this allow
Edward is acclaimed as king then.
exactly. Yes, he
Yeah,
he can.
yeah.
The road is clear, and and the residents of much of London's quite happy about that. Then presumably.
I think generally, I mean, it's difficult to generalize about an
I
entire
know. I
city's
always wonder about
population.
your average peasant in the streets. Would he really care if the Yorkists or Lancastrians were in charge?
Doubtful.
I think I don't know if this is a later myth, but I think there are instances of like towns and villages in England having stocks of different livery badges. So whichever army was riding through, they'd stick, oh, Beaufort, oh, Percy, and then as soon as they were gone, it's like, change them.
Sounds apocryphal to me, but it's quite
Yeah,
possible. You
it's
never
yeah.
know.
I like to think there's a kernel
I
of
think
truth
the
to that.
merchant community in London were very much in favour of they'd been in favour of Richard, Duke of York, and therefore they were very supportive of Edward. And of course, the merchant community means money. It means
Mm.
resources. Um, so yeah, I think he was pretty well received. He recruited a lot more men, but because although he'd been acclaimed king, that effectively was completely meaningless in terms of becoming king, because still the majority of the nobility were on Henry VI's side. Margaret still got Henry VI. She's got a big army. They withdraw to the Midlands, but it's still there. You know, I mean, it's he can't ignore it.
Okay. I'm just conscious we're getting for an hour in. Are we? We're kind of a little bit behind because we were planning to get to 1469.
No, I don't think we need to get to 1469. 1469 is really when the next crisis starts.
Okay.
We maybe need to do a bit of a post. We need to finish 1461, and then maybe do a bit of a postscript up to 1464. But that's a couple of sentences almost, really, I
Okay,
guess.
great. Well, let's do that now then. 14, and then we can have a bit of a break. You probably be up for that.
Don't
Yep,
mind.
yep,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Good
Okay.
idea.
Well, so that then Edward the Fourth is in king, but as you say, he hasn't got much support. So what's the next big moment?
Well,
Well,
almost immediately he has to go north. He has to go and take on, if he's going to actually be king, he's got to defeat Henry VI's army and the nobility within it, and basically say, make a statement. This is it. I'm king. There are no others, sort of thing.
yeah.
And so that's what he does.
And then you
Um,
get to Towton, which is you know, well, from what I've read about it, this absolutely hellish battle. Um, I think was it the largest in terms of numbers fought during the Wars of the Roses?
We're
it was the
talking
largest.
10,000 dead, I think, aren't we?
Well,
Yeah, I'm a little like so you get these numbers from chroniclers and
yeah,
they always
yeah,
exaggerate.
yeah.
I'm not sure what kind of evidence exists in terms of like wage or muster rolls, but by all accounts, it seems that it's pretty, large scale.
If you think about it, everybody's there for the first
Mm,
time. Really, everybody's in one place. All the major nobility on the Lancastrian side, the king. The king's not actually there, but all of his side is there, and all the Yorkist lords are there,
mm,
and so it's inevitable that your armies are going to be bigger. It's just logical that they would be because they're all in one place. So I mean, I think most of the numbers are exaggerated, but that doesn't stop it being that still the largest Wars of the Roses battle.
yeah.
Um, it is claimed that it's the largest battle to take place ever on English soil, um, which is still possible, though I think, again, as you say, the numbers are very unreliable. It's difficult to be certain.
And before the battle, because there's this famous painting, isn't there, of the Kingmaker looking hugely powerful.
Was
and
this
he
where
makes
he
a
kills his horse or something
yes,
symbolic?
exactly.
It says,
What
"I'm."
happens?
That's just before the main Battle of Towton. In fact,
Right.
such is the paucity of evidence that we're not actually sure what happens on which day. There's an engagement at Ferrybridge, which is where he
Mm.
kills his horse, and there's a fight basically over this bridge to cross the River Aire, and the Yorkists are significantly mauled in that engagement. The Lancastrian commander is Lord Clifford, the son of the Clifford killed at St Albans. So there is this kind of preamble to the battle, but it's not clear from the sources whether that took place on the morning, on the same day as Towton, or whether it took place the day before. There's much confusion. Opinions vary, let's say. But that was a kind of curtain raiser.
And at the battle, the Lancastrians lose, and quite heavily, don't they?
It's a
Yeah,
very, very close battle for almost the entire day. It's a very long battle. It's a slugfest. You know,
yeah.
they're battering each other to death in cold conditions, freezing cold. And towards the end of the day, some reinforcements, the Duke of Norfolk's men who've been lagging behind because he's been ill, they finally arrive at the battle to support York, to support Edward. And my belief is that that does make a huge difference, that you've got fresh men, not thousands of them, but fresh men arriving when everybody else is completely knackered. And once the Lancastrians start to give ground, it becomes a very, very bloody rout, because it's very difficult to get off the battlefield. The battlefield itself is mud and all sorts of unpleasant things in the way. So there's one little bridge over the River Lug, I think it is. Is it the Lug? No, not the Lug. There's a river anyway. So I can't remember the name of it offhand, but there's one bridge over it, and basically, thousands of men can't fit over one bridge. It's just a bloodbath. A lot of people are killed in the rout rather than actually in the main part of the battle.
The cock beck.
Cockbeck, that's
Like,
it.
yeah,
Yes,
that's yeah.
Cockbeck. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Well, I am cheating, of course.
Yeah,
So
so the bridge over Cockbeck is too narrow to allow lots of them to escape.
so they get slaughtered at the bridge.
Yes, and well, across the whole field, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is a lot. There are a lot of casualties for sure.
And so, what does Edward now do? Because Henry VI isn't on the battlefield.
No, Henry and Margaret and Prince Edward I think they're probably in York at the time, but they're now on their way trying to get out because they know that they're in trouble. And ultimately, Margaret and Prince Edward will go abroad. Henry wanders about for a while, trying to hide and do all sorts of things. But it's all over, bar the shouting, but there is quite a lot of shouting. There's still trouble in Wales. Just to summarise the next few years, there's trouble in Wales. There's repeated trouble in the northeast, centred around the three fortresses of Alnwick, Bamborough, and Dunstanburgh. But in the end, largely through the efforts of Warwick, to be fair, the pockets of opposition are pretty much stamped out, and by 1464, it's pretty much all over.
I think what one person who we haven't mentioned and probably should is Somerset, who effectively he's the Lancastrian commander at Wakefield,
Yes,
Second St
yeah,
Albans,
Henry, yeah,
Henry Beaufort, and
yeah,
he really, along with Andrew Trollope, who's a former captain of Calais, they're the ones who kind of energize the Lancastrian cause and win these battles. And then I think Henry Beaufort was in command at Towton, but he
yes, I think he
escapes.
was, yes, he was, yeah.
And he manages to get away, and he's like a thorn in the side for the next few years until he's captured or killed at Hexham,
Yeah, but
1464.
he's the one that Edward forgave and pardoned shared a bed with, and all the rest of it. They were bosom buddies in 1461 and 2. And this is an example of where Edward nearly risks everything by trusting somebody.
Yeah.
Somerset decides to go back to the Lancastrian fold and rebels again. And as you say, he was executed at Hexham in 1464. So
yeah, I think
he got his
Trollope
reward.
Yeah, and I think Trollope is killed as well. So
yeah, I think Trollope might have died at Towton.
right.
I'm not sure. I
So,
think so.
apart from Towton being like a big Lancastrian defeat, it also probably wipes out their best generals.
Oh yeah, I mean Trollope was the soldier of his day. Really, he was the man that everybody respected as a battlefield commander and so on.
Yeah.
I think Somerset was only in command at Towton officially because of his rank as Duke.
Yeah.
But the man, no doubt, who was sort of pulling the strings was probably Trollope. Yeah.
But as Derek says, I think 1464 Bamborough surrenders.
Yeah.
And there's a siege at Harlech, of course, which the song is based on.
Yes,
Men of Harlech.
yeah, that's right.
So anyone watching Zulu will
yeah.
Most people don't realise it's based on that particular.
Yeah. I think Harlech is the last Lancastrian stronghold.
Yeah, it is.
It eventually surrenders in about 1468.
Yeah,
but it's just I mean, it's very sort of, it makes for a great song, but in political terms, it's just a pinprick, one castle in Wales.
Yeah.
But that's convenient because that brings us up to 1469, which is where, Derek, I think you had identified a good time to pause.
Yeah, I mean, pick a year really, but I mean, 68, 69, that sort of area.
Okay, well, we will pause. And so, listeners, that's it for now until the next episode. But thank you, Derek. Thank you, David. And we'll speak again soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening. Links are in the show notes. Please share with friends and family. And if you want to get in touch, you can through X or email history@aspectsofhistory.com. But until then, thank you and good night.